we're going to be talking about a couple things. We're going to be talking about culture at work. We're going to do a deep dive into Click and Connect, and then also I'm going to share a story about how we personally use a Creator app that we built here at Zoho for our everyday work on the comms team. So, what am I doing up here talking about culture? You know, I'm a UX researcher. I'm not a manager. I'm not like a C-level executive or anything. So why am I talking about culture? Well, first, let me back up a little bit and explain a little bit about what UX is, because maybe not everyone is familiar. Basically, I am, fundamentally just an advocate for our users. So what I do is I perform user research, usually in the form of like user interviews or usability testing, and I take that information and I relay it back to our product team so we can kind of build better products. So that's kind of the core of what I do. And the thing about UX and culture is that UX requires good culture to kind of like operate at a really, really good level to produce good user experiences, which is what UX stands for. So some examples of maybe not great work culture would be like teams that are kind of siloed off from each other. They're not communicating. You have like sales, you have development, you have marketing, you have the PMs and all that stuff. And to produce a really good user experience, you need all of those teams to kind of mesh together and communicate. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So UX, again, kind of finds himself in the middle of all these roles, right? So sales, let's talk about support first. Support is, fundamentally, they have like this channel direct from the customer. They hear customer pain points all day long, right? So that's like a treasure trove of information that often gets overlooked. It never gets maybe relayed back to the product teams, all that kind of stuff. So, and then sales, sales is hearing what customers want all day long. They're kind of from the mouths of the customer, what customers are looking for. And then UX is just kind of in the middle of everything. We've kind of built this knack up for translating different types of language and relaying it into the products. For instance, we're really good at taking design language and then giving it to the developers. And we're really, really good at taking, like business speak and then also kind of making that in sync with the user needs. So we just kind of find ourselves in the middle of all of this stuff. And I think that we know what good teams look like. We've seen plenty of examples of that, in like the startup age. But it's definitely easier said than done, right? So what does it take to get these teams to mesh? How can we kind of build this really communicative culture in our organizations? Well, really it just takes a little bit of a nudge, right? And I know that might sound like a little cringy, like you're manipulating people to do things that you want for your organization, but I kind of came to this realization that it's impossible to avoid influencing people's behavior. If we're not making conscious choices about what we're doing, we're maybe just going to be coming up with hapless choices that end up, shaping things for the worse. So we really should be making conscious choices and shaping things for the better. So how does that all relate to culture? Well, to kind of pull this stuff in, I want to tell a story that I heard from this book called Systems Thinking by Donella Meadows. It's really, really great. So basically, in the 1970s, there was this energy crisis in Amsterdam caused by an oil embargo. And so the whole city was just like on high alert, like, hey, consume less energy, consume less energy, consume less energy. And it turned out that even with all of that stuff, there was this small fraction of homes that were consuming a third less energy than all the other homes. And so people were like, what's going on here? What's going on? It turns out that the homes that were consuming less energy, there was just one difference. They were pretty much the same across the board. The difference was the energy meter that people were looking at to kind of get the feedback of their energy consumption. For the homes that used less energy were actually right in front and center of their home. The homes that were consuming a lot more energy, their electric meters were in the basement. So basically, what does that mean for us, I think the lessons that we can take from that are, the homes that the people had the electric meter in the front, they were engaging with it daily. It was like constant reminder for their energy consumption, right? So the first thing we need to do is just have this clear goal in mind. And this is kind of also easier said than done, right? Because us, in the business world, we have so many different goals, right? And sometimes they can start to overlap each other and then things get a little bit cloudy, right? So I think first and foremost, having a clear goal is what we can take from that. And then also making all of the actions that service that goal front and center, right? So we want that to be the easiest thing to do. So in the case of Amsterdam, in the energy crisis, their clear goal was, hey, we need to consume less energy, right? And then the actions that helped out was, having the electric meter right in the front of the center of their home. Our goal here today, we're going to talk about, building a culture of communication and collaboration. So how do we get that to happen in our organizations? Well, I think there's a couple of different approaches we could take. One is we could take kind of the authoritarian approach, where we just kind of hound people all the time and we say, here's our goal, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And you're just going to stay on top of them the whole way, right? Well, so I think that usually doesn't produce such good results. People tend to not like being micromanaged and all that kind of stuff. So what about the other option here? We could just design these things into our tools that we use every day, right? We can make doing the things that service the goal the easiest actions to take. There's this really great quote by a guy who I don't really know. We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. So the thing that I like about this is that it actually originated from Winston Churchill, who said, we shape our buildings, and thereafter our buildings shape us, right? So thinking back to, the Amsterdam energy crisis, these people are in their homes, all day long, and one small change in the environment had this radical, measurable change on their behaviors. So for us, we live in digital spaces, right? The people in Amsterdam spent so much time in their homes. We live in our digital tools that we use at work, right? We're in them all the time, so of course they're going to influence our behavior. I think that we should design our tools to shape us for the better. And then, so today we're going to look, like I said, at a deep dive in a few apps. We're going to jump off with Qlik, and I'm just going to kind of give some examples of what's going on, and then we'll kind of actually take a dive into the product. So Qlik is online work chat, right? It's really, really good at building relationships. It helps us communicate information. It helps us collaborate, and it helps us get work done a little bit faster. So flexible channels of communication. Let's talk about that. That takes the shape of conversations. You can literally reach out to anyone in your organization, people that you don't know, some people that you do know. You can also form these ad hoc project groups, right? So you'll start a conversation with someone, and then you need to loop someone back in because it's something, it's a project that you're working on specifically with those people, right? So the flexibility of just being able to jump from conversation and then build a new conversation from that conversation. And then, of course, we have channels, which are for the more structured, everyday kind of conversations that you would have. All right, and of course, our digital communication has evolved a lot over time. We're all texting each other all the time. We know that things can get lost in translation. So sometimes something as easy as just sending an emoji to someone that you don't know can really help kind of say, hey, I'm a friend, let's talk, I'm not an enemy or anything like that. So we'll take a look at that in a second. And then obviously it's more than just chat too. Qlik has audio and video sharing that you can do right from the conversation. You can even share your screen if you need to show what you're working on. And then for Primetime's actually really cool, and I've only just personally discovered it, but I feel like we've all been in those awkward situations whenever you're doing a video conference or an audio conference, and you're talking over each other, and then you're like, oh wait, hold on, I'm gonna wait a little bit and not talk so the other person can talk, and then they're not talking either, and it's just awkward because everyone's just waiting in silence. So Primetime solves this by basically having the host let one other person talk at a time, and you just raise your hand, and then you can be given the floor. So we'll take a look at that as well. Actually, let's dive into this demo now. All right, so I'm going to just kind of go over a couple scenarios, right? So in this scenario, I am Scott Fisher. I am the head honcho of Zilker. And Scott wants to reach out to one of his PMs, Li Zheng. Just go ahead and send her a direct message. We can start right up here. And I can just be Lee, hey there. All right, cool. So we have this conversation. We're going to pretend it's just from today. So Lee's been working on some UI stuff for Zilcal, their Notely thing. And then so, I kind of said something earlier, but I missed her comment here. So I just want to let her know, hey, I got this. So sometimes what I do whenever I'm talking over people in a Qlik message is I just go to the React thing, and I'm just cool, I got your message. I read you loud and clear, right? But I think that all this stuff that me and Lee are talking about right now would actually be, it would be really, really good if Ryan could get in on this conversation too. So if I wanted to share with Ryan what me and Lee have been talking about, I could do a couple things, right? I could create a new message, and I could just send it to Ryan, but then I have to type in all this stuff over again, and that just does not sound like a lot of fun. I could also just add him to this conversation by clicking Actions here, add him to the conversation. The problem with that is that he would have access to the entire conversation thread, right? So that's not super fun either. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fork the conversation. So I'm going to go up to where Lee was talking about these widgets for the UI, and I'm just going to hit this little 3 thing. I'm going to fork from here. So whenever I fork a conversation, it creates a new conversation, and it leaves this conversation intact. I've actually recently started doing this, and it's been saving me a lot of time. So let's loop in Ryan here. Just add him. You see how he pops up at the bottom? I'm just going to go ahead and create this new conversation, and then I can say, hey, Ryan, I think you are just the right guy for this. And then I'm going to welcome him to the project. I'm going to send him a cool little welcome GIF as well. Which one? Let's do this one. There we go. Cool. All right, so Ryan's been looped into the conversation, right? And that just saves everyone a lot of time. And then, it's a nice way to just get people in on the conversation really easily. So Ryan is in the chat. We're all happy about that. So let's take a look at some of the other things that Qlik has to offer. So this side panel over here, there's a lot going on, right? If I wanted to, I can just kind of minimize these things, make them bigger, make them smaller if I want to kind of just show the relevant information. So my pins are the ones that you say hey, I want you always at the top all the time. Conversations are just your most recent conversations. And then we have channels here. Let's come back to channels though. So down here we have contacts and we have bots, just to give you the full gamut of what this side panel contains. So with channels, there's 4 different types. We have personal, organization, team, and then external, right? So let's just take a look at what that looks like. We're going to create a channel. So organization, team, personal. Let's say, in your channels, they're organization-wide, or they can be, but they don't have to be business-related. You can have fun conversations in here like Weekend Pokemon Go channel or whatever if you want to, right? So we're going to not create one, but I just want to go over these options right here. So we have organization, which is for everyone in your organization. Anyone can see it. We have team, which is just members of your team. There can be many teams in an organization. You also have personal, which are just channels that you create that you can invite people to. And you have external. So external channels could be used for, your partners or your vendors if you would kind of loop them in. The way you share that is via an external share link. All right, and then I wanted you to kind of pay attention here. We have open to all and invite only, right? So even though I have the option to send out invitations for personal channels, I can also make organization and team channels invite only. Just kind of helps you kind of control things if you want to. So let's check out our internal support channel. It's down here somewhere. Here we go. All right, cool. So I was talking with Amelia earlier, and Amelia needs some privileges to kind of edit this channel. It's a little bit old, so our information's a little bit out of date. So let's take a look first at our privileges. So there's a couple of different ways you can go about getting there. One is you can just click on this little icon right up here, and then we can go to permissions. So here we can see all the different permissions, and because I'm the super admin, I have the ability to edit all of this stuff. So if I wanted to give all members the ability to edit channels, I could do that. But that's not what I want to do in this case. I just want to give it to one person. So let's hop into our participants here by clicking participants. And then, like I said, I'm going to loop in Amelia. I'm just going to give her admin privileges. So I'm just going to scroll down here, find Amelia. Once I hover, I get this little more information icon, and I can just go ahead and assign as admin. And now she has the ability to edit everything in the channel, so she can go ahead and update that information. All right, so we all use Qlik. It seems like maybe not all of us, but a good majority of us do. So I'm going to just go ahead and hop back into the presentation. With Qlik, we kind of talked about how we have flexible channels of communication that adapt for our different needs. We talked about that we have the ability to kind of make things personal and give that kind of human touch with emojis and GIFs and all that kind of stuff. And then we also looked at how it's a lot more than just chat, right? We have audio and video. We can do those prime time calls and stuff. So all that stuff is really, really great. But we're going to move on for the sake of time here. Okay, so Connect. Connect is a social network for work, right? I had my hesitancies whenever I first started using Connect because I'm like not a huge social media person. But maybe like 2 or 3 weeks into the job, into Zoho, I started kind of just like observing things on Connect and just seeing everything kind of play out. And it's just really, really great at a lot of things. But one of the things is that it helps break down silos through @mentions and hashtags. So several times now, I've been in a work conversation, where I'm talking about something or I see something on a post, and I'll just like loop in someone else with an @mention, and then they loop in someone else, and then it just kind of turns into this really, really big thing. But the nice thing about that is it's in these nice little encapsulated conversations. So if I needed to go back and reference that, I could just do it really, really easily. Unlike Click, where like in Click, you're talking about a million different things at once, conversations are overlapping, so the nice encapsulation is actually really, really great. The other thing about Connect is that you can promote organic thought leadership. So, Medium is like a very popular platform amongst like user experience designers and researchers. The nice thing about Connect is that anyone can post to this, and it doesn't have to come from like the top, right? Top-down thought leadership is great, but whenever you can empower different people in your organization to share their ideas, it's just a really, really cool thing. And then groups, hotbed of collaboration. There's some really, really cool stuff that happens with groups, right? So again, because everything's encapsulated, what you can do with groups is like have specific ones for specific teams. And whenever new people come on board, they can just check out all the conversations that have been happening and get kind of brought up to speed relatively quickly. When it comes to just like learning about your culture, how your team operates, how they communicate. So we'll take a look at that in more depth in the demo. Feeds is fantastic just for kind of staying on top of things. I make it kind of the opening of my day to just kind of go to our feeds and just see what's going on in the organization. Zoho's a really big company, and a lot of stuff doesn't happen in the Austin office, so it's really, really nice just helping to stay informed. The other thing, we have this feature called manuals. And groups are great for catching people up to speed like relatively quickly. But with manuals, you can actually like store your information. You can house your information in like style guides and all this kind of stuff to kind of like pass that information down to your future teammates. So it's a really awesome thing. All right, so let's hop into this demo again. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is I need to bring Olivia up to speed on this thing that I noticed on Tyke's post. So the nice thing about the Zoho suite is you have all these nice integrations here. So I can just go to contacts down here without having to go right into Click. I can just type in Olivia. So we were already talking about this post earlier, something about forms, I think. So let's go ahead and open this up. Notice that it opens in this really nice modal window so it doesn't interrupt my workflow. So we're talking about these investment proof forms, right? And I was noticing that some stuff is just kind of funky. So I'm going to @mention Olivia. I'm going to say, hey, I think we could improve this form. The UX is questionable. All right, cool. And then she knows what's going on with that now, so I don't have to really worry about that. She'll get a nice little notification. So now that she's kind of been informed, again, this is the beginning of my day, so I'm going to check out our feeds now to see what I have been missing. So we'll hop into feeds, we're already there. So it looks like Ryan's been posting some stuff, as always. Also, I'm just really active on Click and Connect. So, but yeah, I missed out on this one somehow, the empathy post. So I don't want to, like comment on that post, but I still want to follow it, and I still want to kind of keep informed on what people are saying about it. So what I can do is I can just click this little ... here and follow that post, and now I will get notifications on that post. And with forums, we can see a lot of these little categories we have here, but I wanted to showcase these rich text options we have. So again, very similar to Medium, it just lets you post a lot of different content here. If I wanted to, I could break out a quote here just by highlighting it, clicking this little guy up here. So it just makes the content jump out and catch your eye. And the nice thing about this is it's, people will just send a million emails, and this is not just another email, right? So you have something that has the potential to catch people's eye and all that kind of good stuff. Again, for the sake of time, let's move on. All right, So that's kind of, Connect in a nutshell. We're gonna bounce back here because I really want to share the story of Creator. So Zoho is a company that runs on Zoho, right? I'm a part of the comms team. We use this app called Content Assistant every day, and it's like I honestly don't know how we'd function without it. It was an app that was built in Creator, and actually in the early days, so the comms team, a little bit about what they do is they basically take all of the content that comes into Zoho and goes out to our users, and we just like edit it. We make sure it's like up to snuff and all that kind of stuff. But in the early days, before Content Assistant, we were literally just doing all of this through email, pen and paper, and it was crazy, right? It was very chaotic. So how did we kind of start that process of creating a Creator app? Well, the first thing we needed to do was define our audience. Of course, we had the editors, we had the writers who would submit the content, and we had their managers, right? So for the editors, our needs were, we needed a central and organized solution. We needed some built-in accountability. We needed to be able to see priority level, like when things were due. We needed more information from the writers sometimes. And then we also wanted it to be our central focus for our day. The writers did not want this to be centrally focused. They had a lot of other things they were doing, right? It needed to be really easy for them. And the other thing was that it needed to be transparent. They were kind of hesitant about sending off their content to us because they never knew, like, who has the document? When's it coming back to me and stuff? So yeah, all of those things needed to be addressed. And then for the managers, they just needed a reason to kind of like endorse this app to get it used throughout the organization. So we have all of these different needs, right? So how did we kind of put them all together into one solution? Well, for the editors portal, we ended up just having a nice little list of all the things that would pop out, sorted by priority level. And with priority, we just wanted to kind of set the expectation that things had to be submitted in a certain way. So we just kind of conveyed that to the writers that we were working with. And for the writers, we used these smart forms to make things really, really easy for them. Yes, we needed more information, but if these forms could kind of adjust dynamically to prevent the writers from having to type in all of this extraneous information, that would be great. And then since the platform wasn't their, like day-to-day, central of their day thing, we set up a series of notifications that gave them all the information they needed to kind of, work away from the app. And then the manager portal, this is actually really great. It gave them the opportunity to kind of see at a snapshot glance, like everything that was going on with their writer. So when it came to like end of year review time, they could see like, oh yeah, this writer has done like all of this work. So really just hoping that would save them a lot of time, right? And so how did that turn out for us? I mean, like I said, Content Assistant is something that we've been using every day. It saved us so much time, and it allows us to have kind of more meaningful conversations with our writers and do all of that great stuff. Right. So when it comes to Creator, though, and having, you're in the position of building these apps for yourself and for your businesses, I just wanted to give you a couple of useful tips for doing that. And I assume that you guys will be getting these slides. If not, this list is actually, it's from the Nielsen Norman Group. Nielsen is basically a usability expert, so this is kind of an adapted list. But we want to give appropriate feedback. We want to use human language in our apps, allow users to change their minds, like with an undo button or something. We want to have consistency throughout our apps. We want to limit reliance on memory, allow users to tailor frequent actions, and only show relevant information, organizing it into digestible chunks. And then whenever we have errors, we want to indicate both the error and the solution. We want to use helpful constraints to prevent those errors in the first place. And then we also want to offer contextual help to also prevent those errors in the first place. But we've kind of defined culture, what that looks like, how to spread positive culture in your organizations. We took a dive into Click and Connect, and then I briefly explained how we use Creator here at Zoho every day on the comms team. And we gave, looked at some helpful tips. And that is it for today. Thank you guys.